The gift I left her changed everything. Brenda Kelsworth thought she was so smart. Our HOA president stealing packages right off my doorstep, waving at my camera like we were buddies. 3 boxes that Tuesday afternoon. My business inventory, gone again. But this time was different. This time, I'd prepared something special just for her. Something she couldn't resist taking. Something that would cost her everything. The desert heat hit my face as I watched her grab that final package, stuff it in her BMW, and drive away with that smug smile. What Brenda didn't realize? This wasn't just another delivery. This one box would unravel her entire life. By the time this story's over, you'll understand why Brenda Kelsworth wishes she'd never set foot on my property. Ready to see an HOA Karen get exactly what she deserves? Hit that like if you're here for justice. Where are you watching from tonight? Let me start from the beginning. My name's Marcus, and 6 months ago, I thought I'd found paradise in Saguaro Springs, a quiet Phoenix suburb where the biggest drama was supposed to be someone's grass growing too tall. I'd just gone through a brutal divorce, lost half my savings, my house, and most of my confidence. Starting over at 34 isn't easy, but I had one thing going for me. Desert Fire Sauces, my small online business making artisanal hot sauces. The orders were steady, specialty bottles, custom labels, ingredients shipped weekly. Nothing fancy, but it was rebuilding my life one package at a time. The neighborhood seemed perfect, built in 2018, reasonable HOA fees, and most importantly, secure package delivery. That's when I met Brenda Kelsworth. Picture this, a woman who treats running a suburban HOA like she's the CEO of Amazon. 52 years old, drives a white BMW SUV with a blessed license plate frame. Never worked a day outside her home, but treats her volunteer position like it's a 6-figure executive role. I'm talking about measuring grass height with actual rulers, timing garage doors with a stopwatch, walking the neighborhood at dawn with a clipboard, hunting violations like she's getting paid per citation. The first time I saw her in action, she was crouched next to my neighbor's mailbox with a measuring tape. The morning sun caught her oversized sunglasses as she muttered something about property line violations. The smell of desert sage mixed with her aggressive perfume should have been my warning. My first package disappeared on a Wednesday. Custom bottle caps worth $180. Vanished without a trace. Amazon tracking said, delivered. My empty doorstep said otherwise. Honest mistake, right? Got a replacement, moved on. Package number 2 went missing the following week. Specialty labels I'd waited 3 weeks for. $240 down the drain. Now I was suspicious, but hey, delivery drivers make mistakes. The third time broke the pattern. Tuesday afternoon, 2:47 p.m. There she was, designer yoga pants, checking over her shoulder like some suburban cat burglar. The crunch of gravel under her sneakers echoed through our quiet cul-de-sac as she casually loaded 3 of my packages under her arm. 3 packages. My inventory. My livelihood. The audacity hit harder than the desert heat radiating off the asphalt. This woman spent her days lecturing us about community standards while literally robbing me blind. I decided to handle this diplomatically. Biggest mistake of my life. Found her sorting mail at the community boxes Thursday morning. Way too much mail for one person. But whatever. Hey Brenda, I think some packages got delivered to your place by mistake. She didn't even blink. Oh yes. These delivery drivers are so careless. I'll check my garage tonight. When's good to swing by? I'll call you tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. Neither did next week. Radio silence. That's when reality hit me. This wasn't confusion. This was a test. She wanted to see if I'd push back, make waves, become the neighbor who causes problems. Bad news for Brenda. I don't back down easy. Time for research. Turns out, our HOA president had been perfecting her brand of neighborhood tyranny for 4 straight years. Unopposed elections, intimidated board members, residents too busy to challenge her authority. But here's what really got me. The woman had 0 oversight. No financial reviews, no board meetings with actual participation, no checks on her power. She'd created her own little kingdom, and apparently stealing was part of the royal privileges. The sound of her car door slamming started feeling like a warning bell every time she cruised our street. Always hunting for violations, measuring things, taking notes in that purple ink she loved. What I didn't know yet was that I'd stumbled into something much bigger than missing hot sauce bottles. Brenda Kelsworth was running a one-woman crime spree, and I was about to become the biggest threat to her operation she'd ever faced. Time to see exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. So I started documenting everything. Every delivery, every timestamp, every interaction with our beloved HOA president. If Brenda wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules faster than she could change them. Her first real power move hit me 3 days later. Official HOA violation notice, hand-delivered with the drama of a court summons. The envelope even had those fancy wax seals, probably ordered with stolen Amazon gift cards, knowing Brenda. Notice of commercial activity violation. My excessive commercial deliveries were apparently disrupting our community's residential character. She cited some bylaw about home business visibility and threatened $500 fines per violation. $500 per package. The kicker? Immediate cessation of all business operations. Not a reduction. Complete shutdown. The smell of fresh ink on expensive letterhead couldn't mask the stench of obvious retaliation. But something about the legal language felt off. Too polished for someone who spelled definitely as defiantly in neighborhood emails. Time for homework. I dug out my original HOA documents. That brick-thick packet everyone signs but nobody reads. Spent my weekend diving through 47 pages of legal jargon with the intensity of a desperate law student. Found her cited bylaw. Problem? The version in my documents mentioned nothing about commercial deliveries. Nothing about home businesses. She'd basically invented new rules out of thin air. My mind flashed back to a legal podcast I'd binged during my divorce proceedings. The host had mentioned something crucial about HOA modifications. Any rule change requires 30 days written notice to all homeowners plus a formal meeting vote. No secret amendments, no dictator-style additions. Brenda had violated her own governing documents to target me specifically. Armed with this ammunition, I filed a formal complaint with the board. Included my theft footage, highlighted the illegal bylaw creation, and demanded a hearing. But documentation wasn't enough. Time to upgrade my surveillance game. Second camera system installed with motion alerts pinging my phone. Now I'd catch every approach to my doorstep in real time. Started tracking Brenda's schedule like I was planning Ocean's 11. Yoga, 10 a.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays. Fancy bistro lunches, noon to 1:30 weekdays. Package vulnerability window, 12:30 to 3 p.m. When our cul-de-sac turned into a ghost town, predictable as Phoenix weather in July. 3 weeks later, board meeting night, community center conference room reeking of industrial carpet and burnt coffee, 5 board members, 7 residents, and 1 purple pen-wielding dictator ready for battle. Watching Brenda work that room was like witnessing a masterclass in manipulation. She cut off speakers, redirected uncomfortable questions, and somehow painted my theft complaint as neighborhood drama. "We need balanced perspectives," she said, clicking her pen like a nervous metronome. "Package delivery disputes are complex, and unclear security footage shouldn't drive hasty decisions." Unclear? That footage captured her face, license plate, and that distinctive waddle she did carrying multiple boxes. Then came the financial report, and the night's biggest surprise. "Richard Kelsworth household shows $1,800 in outstanding dues," the treasurer mumbled. My brain did a double take. Richard Kelsworth, Brenda's husband, $1,800 delinquent while she threatened me with $500 fines. The other board members looked like hostages during Brenda's responses, flinching when she raised her voice, studying their shoes when she made obviously false statements. She'd bullied them into complete submission. I watched their body language, arms crossed, minimal eye contact with her, the way they physically leaned away when she spoke. These people were terrified of their own HOA president. Final vote on my complaint, 3-2 to table pending further investigation. Translation: buried in bureaucratic quicksand. Brenda's victory smirk could have powered the entire subdivision. She took detailed notes in that ridiculous purple ink, even had the audacity to give me a little finger wave when they announced the vote. The desert evening air felt thick with frustration as I walked to my car. But underneath the defeat, something else was building. Cold, calculated determination. The rigged system had just shown its true colors. Intimidated board members, fabricated bylaws, obvious corruption getting rubber-stamped by scared volunteers. If legal channels wouldn't work against someone who'd weaponized the entire system, then it was time to fight fire with fire. Brenda Kelsworth thought she'd won round 1, What she didn't realize was that she'd just given me a masterclass in exactly how corrupt her operation really was. And now I knew something she didn't. Her husband's financial troubles weren't just an embarrassing detail. They were a crack in her perfect facade, a crack I was about to split wide open. The real game was just beginning. Brenda wasn't done with me, not even close. 2 weeks after the board meeting, she launched what I can only describe as a full-scale neighborhood propaganda campaign. Suddenly, my small hot sauce business became the greatest threat to Saguaro Springs since the last scorpion invasion. It started with her forming a neighborhood safety committee, because apparently my monthly shipments of vinegar and peppers constituted a public hazard. She recruited 3 neighbors I'd never spoken to, armed them with clipboards, and sent them door-to-door spreading concerns about suspicious chemical deliveries. Chemical deliveries. I was making hot sauce, not methamphetamine. The smell of fresh printed flyers filled my mailbox within days. Protect our community, report unusual commercial activity, complete with my address highlighted in, you guessed it, purple ink. But Brenda's masterstroke was the noise complaints. 3 separate reports filed with the city about commercial truck traffic disrupting our peaceful neighborhood. Problem was, UPS delivers to every house on our street. FedEx comes twice weekly. The mail truck rumbles through daily at 2 p.m. like clockwork. Yet somehow, only my deliveries warranted official complaints. That's when I discovered Brenda's side hustle. Late night scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, because insomnia makes you do weird things. When I spotted something familiar, a set of specialty hot sauce bottles, photographed in someone's living room. My bottles, my custom labels, being sold by Bree Kelly for $15 each. I'd paid $45 for those same bottles wholesale. The living room in the photos looked familiar. Beige walls, fake wood entertainment center, that particular Arizona suburban builder-grade aesthetic. Then I spotted it, a purple pen sitting on the coffee table in one shot. Brenda was literally selling my stolen inventory online under a fake name. Screenshot after screenshot revealed the scope of her operation. Bottle caps, specialty labels, even packaging materials, all being flipped for quick cash. The woman had turned package theft into a profitable side business. My divorce attorneys had taught me something valuable during those dark months. Always document financial crimes with timestamps and screenshots. Every listing got captured, every photo saved with metadata intact. But here's where things got interesting. I started cross-referencing her posting dates with my delivery notifications. The pattern was surgical. Items appeared online within hours of being stolen. This wasn't random theft, this was systematic inventory conversion. During my research, I stumbled across something that made my blood run cold. Federal mail theft laws I'd never bothered learning about. Turns out, stealing mail worth over $50 automatically triggers federal jurisdiction. Not local police, not HOA mediation, federal postal inspectors. And repeated mail theft? That becomes organized mail fraud, which carries penalties up to $250,000 per incident. Brenda wasn't just stealing packages, she was committing federal crimes. Armed with this knowledge, I contacted the postal inspector's office. Expected bureaucratic runaround got Detective Sarah Felix on the phone within an hour. Mr. Felix, she said, and yes, we had a moment about sharing last names. Mail theft has become a serious problem in suburban Phoenix. We'd definitely like to see your documentation. 3 days later, I'm sitting in a federal building downtown, watching Detective Felix review my evidence with the intensity of someone who'd seen this pattern before. This is systematic conversion, she explained. Your HOA president isn't just stealing, she's operating an illegal resale business using stolen federal mail. That's racketeering territory. The word racketeering hit like a thunderbolt. I'd gone from missing hot sauce bottles to federal organized crime charges. But the real bombshell came when I got home. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was waiting by my mailbox, holding a manila envelope with shaking hands. Marcus, I need to show you something. Inside were photographs, Ring doorbell screenshots showing Brenda taking packages from Mrs. Patterson's doorstep over the past 6 months. Prescription medications, medical supplies, even grocery deliveries during the elderly woman's recovery from hip surgery. "She took my blood pressure medication twice," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "I had to go 3 days without pills because the replacement shipments kept getting stolen too." That's when the scope of this operation hit me. This wasn't personal vendetta against my business. Brenda was systematically robbing vulnerable neighbors, elderly residents, working mothers, anyone who couldn't fight back effectively. Mrs. Patterson introduced me to Jennifer from 2 streets over, young mother, husband deployed overseas, struggling to afford baby formula that kept disappearing from her doorstep. $400 worth over 3 months, Jennifer said, bouncing her crying infant. I started having family members hand-deliver formula because I couldn't afford to keep losing shipments. We formed an unofficial coalition that evening. 3 victims, dozens of theft incidents, hundreds in stolen goods, and growing evidence that Brenda Kelsworth was running the most brazen mail theft operation our postal inspector had ever documented. The woman who lectured us about community standards was systematically robbing her own neighbors. Time to make her pay. Brenda's response to my federal investigation was swift and completely unhinged. First came the police report, false harassment charges claiming I was stalking her daily routine with security cameras. Officer Martinez showed up at my door Tuesday morning looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Sir, we received a complaint about surveillance harassment." I showed him my doorbell camera footage, standard residential security pointing at my own property. Nothing illegal, nothing invasive, certainly nothing constituting stalking. "Ma'am filed similar reports against 3 other neighbors this month," he said quietly. "Between you and me, we're starting to see a pattern here." Brenda's credibility with local law enforcement was apparently wearing thin. Next came her attempted ban on security cameras, emergency HOA proposal claiming cameras pointing toward common areas violated privacy rights. The irony was breathtaking. A woman stealing federal mail wanted to eliminate the cameras catching her in the act. But her masterpiece was the money laundering accusation. She actually convinced someone at City Council that my hot sauce business was a front for financial crimes. The complaint alleged suspicious cash transactions, unreported income, and failure to maintain proper business licensing. The city inspector who visited my garage looked genuinely confused. "Sir, you're making hot sauce with vinegar and peppers. Where's the money laundering supposed to happen?" I showed him my business records, ingredient receipts, and sales documentation. Everything legitimate, everything traceable, everything completely legal. "Ma'am who filed this complaint mentioned large cash deposits and suspicious chemical purchases," he said. "All I see here is someone buying cayenne peppers in bulk." That's when I understood Brenda's strategy. She couldn't stop the federal investigation, so she was trying to destroy my credibility before it gained momentum. Classic misdirection. Make the victim look like the criminal. But while Brenda was busy filing false reports, I was getting educated about federal mail fraud prosecution. Turns out the Postal Inspector's Office has a 95% conviction rate for mail theft cases with video evidence. When theft becomes systematic, multiple victims, repeated incidents, resale for profit, federal prosecutors treat it like organized crime. My attorney explained the legal concept of conversion. Keeping someone else's property becomes theft, regardless of how you obtained it. Every item Brenda sold online multiplied her criminal exposure exponentially. The math was staggering. 47 documented thefts across 12 households over 8 months, with an estimated total value of $23,000. Federal sentencing guidelines for organized mail fraud start at 18 months prison time. Meanwhile, our neighborhood was quietly organizing. Mrs. Patterson had become the unofficial coordinator, collecting Ring doorbell footage from anyone willing to participate. 8 households now contributing evidence, creating an unbreakable timeline of systematic theft. Jennifer documented every stolen baby supply with receipts and photos. Her financial impact statement showed $400 in direct losses, but thousands more in expedited shipping costs and formula substitutions when deliveries disappeared. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source, Brenda's own social media. Her Facebook posts showed expensive purchases that didn't match her household's known income. Designer purses, jewelry, weekend casino trips, all coinciding perfectly with peaks in neighborhood theft activity. She'd even posted photos from Talking Stick Resort with captions like, "Lucky night at blackjack." The timestamps matched days when multiple neighbors reported stolen packages containing gift cards. But here's where Brenda's psychology really showed itself. She couldn't stop stealing even when she knew federal agents were building a case. I'd started leaving obvious bait packages, boxes labeled with expensive electronics brands, sitting prominently on my doorstep during her known theft windows. Every single one disappeared like clockwork. The GPS trackers inside led to fascinating destinations: pawn shops across Phoenix, a storage unit in Tempe, and repeatedly to Talking Stick casino parking lot where the stolen electronics got converted to gambling chips. Detective Felix called it compulsive criminal behavior, when theft becomes psychological addiction that overrides rational self-preservation. She knows she's being watched, Felix explained. She knows federal charges are coming, but she literally cannot stop stealing packages. The breaking point came when Brenda stole what she thought was my medical supply delivery. I'd created a fake package labeled, "Refrigerate immediately, diabetic medication," and watched her grab it without hesitation. GPS tracking showed it traveled directly to the casino parking lot, where she abandoned the worthless medical supplies in a dumpster. Stealing someone's potentially life-saving medication crossed a line that even her most aggressive legal defense couldn't rationalize. Federal prosecutors confirmed they had enough evidence to proceed with charges, including mail fraud, theft of federal property, and organized criminal conspiracy under RICO statutes. But I wanted more than criminal charges. I wanted public accountability. The monthly HOA meeting was approaching, and this time Detective Felix agreed to attend as a guest speaker about neighborhood crime prevention. Brenda had no idea what was coming. The anonymous email arrived on a Thursday morning, sent from a burner account with the subject line, "You need to know the truth about your HOA president." I almost deleted it as spam until I read the first line. Brenda has a gambling problem. The sender claimed to be Richard Kelsworth, Brenda's husband, and what he revealed changed everything. Attached bank statements showed Brenda had withdrawn $12,000 from HOA accounts over 6 months. The withdrawals coincided perfectly with her documented casino visits, always in amounts just below the $10,000 federal reporting threshold. But the real bombshell was her gambling debt. Richard's message was desperate. "She owes $18,000 to Talking Stick Casino. They've called our house 23 times this month. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, but I can't be an accessory to federal crimes." Suddenly, everything made sense. The escalating theft, the systematic resale operation, the compulsive behavior even under federal surveillance. Brenda wasn't just stealing packages. She was feeding a gambling addiction that had spiraled completely out of control. The bank records painted a devastating picture. Daily casino visits, sometimes multiple times per day, ATM withdrawals, cashier's checks, even credit card advances, all converted to gambling chips within hours. She'd started small 6 months ago. $50 casino trips funded by selling stolen items online. But gambling addiction works like quicksand. The more you struggle, the faster you sink. By month 3, she was stealing packages specifically looking for gift cards and electronics that could be quickly converted to cash. By month 5, she was embezzling HOA funds to cover casino debts. By month 6, she was taking people's prescription medications without regard for the medical consequences. Richard's recordings from their home arguments provided the missing psychological profile. Brenda justifying her theft as temporary borrowing, claiming she'd win big and pay everyone back. Classic addict rationalization that every gambling counselor recognizes. The most chilling recording was from 3 weeks ago. These people don't understand financial pressure like I do. They can afford to replace a few packages while I figure this out. She'd convinced herself that stealing from neighbors was somehow morally justified because of her personal financial crisis. But here's what made this information legally explosive. Embezzlement over $10,000 becomes felony theft under Arizona law. Combined with federal mail fraud charges, we were looking at potential RICO prosecution for organized criminal enterprise. Detective Felix's reaction was immediate. This transforms our case from simple mail theft to complex financial fraud. We'll need forensic accountants and federal prosecutors specializing in organized crime. The HOA board's intimidations suddenly made perfect sense. They'd probably suspected financial irregularities, but were too scared of Brenda's aggressive personality to investigate properly. Board members who questioned her got shouted down, excluded from information, or subjected to retaliatory violations. She'd weaponized their community volunteer spirit against them. Richard provided one final piece of evidence that sealed Brenda's fate. Recordings from HOA meetings where she openly discussed moving association funds to higher yield investments without board approval. Those investments were casino chips. Armed with this financial evidence, I realized the monthly HOA meeting wasn't just an opportunity for public confrontation. It was the perfect venue for maximum legal impact. Detective Felix agreed to coordinate with FBI white-collar crime units for a public arrest that would send a message about HOA corruption throughout Phoenix. But timing would be everything. We needed Brenda to commit one final theft that would demonstrate her compulsive behavior to a room full of witnesses. The trap was set. The evidence was overwhelming. The federal charges were ready. Now all we needed was for Brenda to take the bait one last time. The next 2 weeks felt like preparing for the most important presentation of my life. Except the stakes weren't a promotion, they were federal justice. My dining room table disappeared under evidence, 47 theft incidents across 12 households, GPS tracking data showing stolen goods transported to 14 different pawn shops, and financial records revealing $127,000 in unexplained casino transactions. Mrs. Patterson became our unofficial case coordinator. Her dining room transformed into mission control. The woman who'd been too intimidated to speak up at HOA meetings was now organizing witness testimonies with military precision. Jennifer, you document the baby formula thefts with receipts. Marcus handles the business inventory losses. I'll coordinate the prescription medication incidents, she directed, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose like a suburban general. Detective Felix's legal education sessions were eye-opening. Sitting in her downtown office, surrounded by case files and federal statute books, she explained exactly what we'd uncovered. Systematic mail theft becomes federal conspiracy when it involves multiple victims and organized resale, she said, pointing to precedent cases on her computer screen. Add embezzlement of community funds, and we're looking at RICO charges typically reserved for organized crime syndicates. The magic number was devastating. Federal mail fraud conviction requires full restitution plus criminal penalties, often resulting in financial judgments 3 times the actual damages. But the real revelation came when she showed me Brenda's casino surveillance footage, obtained through federal subpoena. Your HOA president appears on casino security cameras 43 times in the past 6 months, Felix explained, always converting stolen electronics and gift cards to chips within hours of theft. The footage was damning. There's Brenda at the cashier's cage, trading my stolen bottle caps for gambling chips. There she is again the next week, selling Jennifer's baby formula gift cards for quick cash. Most chilling was watching her abandon that fake medical package in the casino dumpster after discovering it contained worthless insulin pens instead of valuable electronics. This demonstrates complete disregard for human welfare, Felix noted. Federal judges don't look kindly on criminals who steal potentially life-saving medications. While I was learning federal law, our neighborhood coalition was building an unbreakable case. 8 households provided Ring doorbell footage, creating a timeline that mapped Brenda's theft routes with GPS precision. She had specific patterns: Tuesday and Thursday mornings after yoga, weekday lunch hours when most residents were at work, and Friday afternoons when weekend deliveries were most vulnerable. Jennifer's financial documentation revealed the human cost beyond mere property theft. $400 in stolen baby supplies had forced her family to choose between formula and rent money multiple times. She wasn't just stealing packages, Jennifer explained during one of our planning meetings. She was stealing our sense of security, our trust in our neighborhood, our belief that community leaders protect residents instead of preying on them. The property management company representative agreed to attend our emergency meeting after reviewing evidence of systemic HOA fund misappropriation. Liability concerns were driving their cooperation. If they'd failed to oversee an obviously corrupt board president, homeowners could sue for damages. But the real coup was securing media coverage. Channel 12 investigative reporter Sarah Martinez had been tracking HOA corruption stories across Phoenix suburbs. When I contacted her about a sitting board president arrested for federal mail fraud, she immediately understood the broader implications. This isn't just about one corrupt individual, Martinez explained during our interview. This is about systemic failures in HOA oversight that allow petty tyrants to abuse their neighbors with impunity. She agreed to attend our emergency meeting with a camera crew, ready to broadcast the confrontation live during the evening news. The final piece involved coordinating federal law enforcement presence. Detective Felix would attend as our guest speaker about neighborhood crime prevention, accompanied by 2 FBI agents specializing in white-collar prosecution. They'd arrest Brenda during the meeting itself, creating maximum public impact while demonstrating that community corruption has serious legal consequences. My attorney prepared civil recovery paperwork seeking $69,000 in damages plus punitive awards under Arizona theft statutes. The beauty of this approach, even if criminal charges somehow failed, civil court has a lower burden of proof and guarantees financial restitution. But we needed one final element to complete our trap: The bait package had to be irresistible, something Brenda couldn't ignore even knowing federal agents were closing in. Her compulsive behavior was our greatest advantage and her fatal weakness. I designed the perfect lure, an Amazon delivery labeled "Medical Emergency Supplies, Expedite Immediately," containing a GPS tracker and a note reading, "Evidence Package Number 127, Compulsive Theft Documentation." The psychological profile was clear. Brenda's gambling addiction had progressed to the point where rational decision-making was impossible. She'd steal that package even if federal agents were standing in my driveway. Timing was everything. Package delivery, 6 hours before the emergency meeting. Theft documentation, real-time GPS tracking to casino parking lot. Public confrontation, live news coverage with federal arrest. The trap was perfect. The evidence was overwhelming. Justice was finally coming to Saguaro Springs. Desperation makes people dangerous, and Brenda Kelsworth was about as desperate as they come. With federal agents circling and her financial crimes exposed, she made one last play for control, a preemptive strike designed to destroy my credibility before the emergency meeting. It started with an attempted restraining order based on completely fabricated evidence. Petitioner fears for her safety due to respondents' escalating harassment and surveillance behavior, the court filing claimed. She'd somehow produced witness statements from neighbors I'd never interacted with, describing threatening behavior that existed only in her imagination. The hearing was scheduled for Wednesday morning, 2 days before our planned HOA confrontation. Sitting in that courtroom, watching Brenda lie under oath with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences, was infuriating. She wore a conservative outfit, spoke in soft tones, and painted herself as a terrified victim of my obsessive vendetta. But here's what happens when you lie to federal investigators for 6 months. They document everything. My attorney presented the judge with a timeline showing Brenda's escalating theft during the exact period she claimed to fear for her safety. Hard to argue someone's terrorizing you while you're actively robbing their doorstep. Your Honor, my lawyer explained, petitioner's alleged fear didn't prevent her from approaching respondent's property 43 times to steal federal mail. The restraining order got dismissed faster than a casino dealer shuffling cards. But Brenda wasn't finished, not even close. That afternoon, she filed false reports with 3 separate government agencies: code enforcement claiming illegal chemical storage, tax authorities alleging unreported business income, and health department reporting unlicensed food production. Each complaint contained just enough technical language to trigger automatic investigations, forcing me to spend the next 48 hours proving my complete legal compliance instead of preparing for the HOA meeting. The code inspector found vinegar and cayenne peppers. The tax investigator confirmed my proper business registration and quarterly filings. The health department discovered a guy making hot sauce in his garage with all required permits. But the real beauty was watching these investigators realize they'd been weaponized by a desperate criminal trying to silence her victim. Ma'am who filed these reports provided very specific allegations that don't match what we're seeing here, the health inspector told me privately. We've had 3 other similar reports from the same complainant this month, all targeting neighbors she apparently has disputes with. Filing false government reports isn't just harassment, it's a misdemeanor crime that adds to criminal exposure. Every false allegation was documenting Brenda's escalating desperation for federal prosecutors. Meanwhile, our community coalition was discovering the true scope of her neighborhood terror campaign. Turns out, anyone who'd ever questioned Brenda's authority got targeted with similar false reports. The neighbor who complained about HOA fund transparency, suddenly cited for illegal home business operations. The resident who questioned excessive landscaping expenses, anonymous tip about unsafe conditions requiring expensive remediation. She'd turned local government agencies into weapons against her own neighbors, but Wednesday evening brought the development that sealed her fate forever. Mrs. Patterson called my cell phone at 11:30 p.m., voice shaking with a combination of fear and rage. Marcus, she tried to break into my house. Ring doorbell footage showed Brenda prowling Mrs. Patterson's backyard at 2:30 a.m., testing doors and windows like a common burglar. When the motion lights activated, she was caught on camera trying to jimmy the back door with what looked like a crowbar. She knows Mrs. Patterson has been organizing testimony against her, Detective Felix explained when I forwarded the footage. This is witness intimidation, which adds federal charges to an already overwhelming case. But the most revealing incident happened Thursday morning, 18 hours before our emergency meeting. Brenda approached Jennifer outside the grocery store and offered her $500 cash to skip the HOA meeting and avoid unnecessary community drama. Jennifer recorded the entire conversation on her phone. "I understand you've had some package delivery issues," Brenda said, counting out $20 bills like some kind of suburban loan shark. "But these situations get complicated when lawyers get involved. Sometimes it's better to let things settle quietly." Attempted witness bribery. Another federal charge. "She's completely lost touch with reality," Detective Felix observed. "The woman's committing new crimes while already under federal investigation for organized theft. This level of compulsive criminal behavior suggests psychological breakdown." The pattern was clear. When cornered, Brenda had chosen escalation over accountability. Every false report, every intimidation attempt, every desperate bribery offer was documenting her criminal mindset for federal prosecutors. Friday morning arrived with perfect timing. My final bait package sat prominently on my doorstep labeled "Federal Evidence, Expedite Delivery," in large letters that any rational person would avoid. At 12:45 p.m., exactly 6 hours before our emergency meeting, Brenda stole it anyway. GPS tracking led straight to the casino parking lot where she abandoned the worthless package in a dumpster, just like all the others. Compulsive criminal behavior documented in real time, broadcast live to federal agents, with perfect timing for maximum courtroom impact. The woman had literally stolen her own arrest warrant. The day of our emergency HOA meeting arrived with the kind of desert heat that makes asphalt shimmer like water, and rational people question their life choices. Brenda Kelsworth was clearly questioning hers. I spotted her white BMW circling the community center parking lot at 4 p.m., 3 hours early for a 7 o'clock meeting. The woman who usually arrived fashionably late to intimidate everyone was now stalking the venue like a paranoid conspiracy theorist. Detective Felix had positioned unmarked surveillance units throughout the neighborhood since dawn. Federal law enforcement doesn't usually coordinate elaborate arrest operations for mail theft. But when organized crime meets live news coverage, exceptions get made. "Subject appears agitated," Felix radioed from her observation post. "Multiple drive-bys, checking exits, possibly considering flight." The GPS tracker from yesterday's stolen package had told the whole story. Casino parking lot, 20-minute stop, then straight to a storage unit in Tempe where Brenda kept her stolen merchandise inventory. Federal agents had photographed her organizing stolen items like some kind of suburban criminal mastermind, apparently preparing for a hasty liquidation sale. But here's where desperation meets delusion. Instead of fleeing jurisdiction or hiring a lawyer, Brenda was preparing for one final performance as HOA president. At 6:30 p.m., she strutted into the community center wearing a designer outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. 30 minutes early, armed with a briefcase full of fabricated documents and the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. The room was already packed, 47 residents in a space designed for 20, with Channel 12's news crew setting up cameras and Detective Felix sitting inconspicuously in the back row next to 2 FBI agents disguised as concerned homeowners. Mrs. Patterson had reserved front row seats for our victim coalition, Jennifer clutching her financial documentation, 3 other families with Ring doorbell footage, and me with my laptop presentation ready to destroy 4 years of corrupt HOA leadership. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brenda began, calling the meeting to order with her usual authoritarian flair, "we're here to address some unfortunate misunderstandings about community management." Misunderstandings. She was calling federal mail fraud misunderstandings. "Recent allegations have created unnecessary drama in our peaceful neighborhood," she continued, voice steady despite the sweat beginning to show through her expensive foundation. "Tonight, we'll set the record straight about proper HOA procedures and address false accusations against community leadership." The audacity was breathtaking. Surrounded by evidence of systematic theft, facing federal prosecution, and she still thought she could control the narrative through sheer intimidation. I started my presentation with a simple question. How many neighbors here have had packages stolen in the past 6 months? 18 hands shot up immediately. Murmurs spread through the packed room as residents realized they weren't isolated victims. "Let's look at the timeline," I continued, clicking to my first slide showing theft incidents mapped against Brenda's known schedule. The correlation was surgical. Every theft coincided with her yoga class endings, lunch returns, or casino trips when she needed quick cash for gambling. "This is harassment," Brenda interrupted, standing up so fast her chair toppled backward. "I demand this presentation stop immediately. This man is using our community meeting to spread malicious lies." But Mrs. Patterson had already started her testimony about stolen prescription medications. Jennifer was explaining the financial impact on her young family. 3 other neighbors provided Ring doorbell footage showing systematic theft patterns. The room's energy shifted like a desert storm rolling in. 4 years of intimidation and fear were evaporating as residents finally understood they outnumbered their tormentor. Furthermore, I continued, displaying financial evidence, HOA fund analysis shows $12,000 in unauthorized withdrawals coinciding with casino visits and online resale activities. That's when Brenda completely lost control. "You people don't understand the pressures of community leadership," she screamed, gesturing wildly with purple-inked papers flying everywhere. "I've sacrificed everything for this neighborhood. I've protected property values. I've maintained standards." The Channel 12 camera captured every unhinged word. These accusations are a conspiracy by residents who don't appreciate proper management. I'll sue every person in this room for defamation. Detective Felix stood up slowly, badge visible for the first time. "Ma'am, I'm Detective Felix with the Postal Inspection Service. You're under arrest for federal mail theft, embezzlement, and organized criminal conspiracy." The room fell silent except for the clicking of handcuffs and Brenda's voice breaking as reality finally penetrated her delusion. "This is impossible. I'm the HOA president. You can't arrest community leadership for maintaining order." But here's my favorite part, the moment I'd been waiting 6 months to deliver. As federal agents led her toward the exit, I held up the final bait package she'd stolen just 6 hours earlier. "Evidence package number 127, I announced to the room full of witnesses and live television cameras. She couldn't stop stealing even when she knew federal agents were watching. Inside was a note that read, "Compulsive theft behavior documented. Game over, Brenda." The applause started slow, then built to a thunderous ovation that probably violated our community noise ordinances. Justice had finally come to Saguaro Springs. The community center erupted in chaos as Brenda Kelsworth was led away in handcuffs, her voice echoing off the walls in desperate denial. "This is a setup. This is harassment. I demand to call my lawyer." But federal agents don't typically accommodate dramatic requests from organized crime suspects. And Detective Felix had already read her rights while Channel 12 broadcast everything live to Phoenix. The sight of our HOA president in custody was surreal. Designer outfit, perfect makeup, and federal handcuffs creating cognitive dissonance that left the entire room speechless. Until Mrs. Patterson started clapping. Slow, deliberate applause that grew as other residents joined in, building to thunderous ovation that probably violated every noise ordinance Brenda had ever enforced. "Order! Order!" shouted board member Tom Williams, desperately trying to regain control of a meeting that had devolved into grassroots revolution. But there was no restoring order after watching 4 years of community tyranny collapse in handcuffs and humiliation. Reporter Sarah Martinez seized the moment, microphone extended toward fleeing FBI agents. "Can you comment on the charges against the HOA president?" Detective Felix paused at the exit, choosing her words carefully for live television. "Federal prosecutors have filed charges including mail fraud, embezzlement, and criminal conspiracy. The investigation documented systematic theft affecting multiple households over 8 months, with estimated damages exceeding $23,000. $23,000. The number hit the room like a physical blow as residents calculated their individual losses against the staggering total. "What happens to our HOA now?" someone shouted from the back. Property manager David Torres stepped forward, clearly relieved to distance his company from the corruption scandal. "Emergency leadership election will be held within 30 days. All financial accounts are frozen pending forensic audit. Any homeowner affected by theft should contact federal authorities to file victim impact statements." But the real fireworks started when Richard Kelsworth appeared in the doorway. Brenda's soon-to-be ex-husband looked like he'd aged 10 years in 6 months, carrying a banker's box filled with evidence he'd been secretly collecting. "I have recordings," he announced to the packed room. "Conversations where she admits to stealing packages to fund gambling debts. Bank statements showing casino transactions funded by HOA embezzlement. Phone calls from collection agencies threatening legal action." The collective gasp was audible. Our corrupt HOA president wasn't just a thief, she was a compulsive gambler who'd used community funds as her personal casino bankroll. She owes $18,000 to Talking Stick Resort, Richard continued, voice breaking with shame and relief. I filed for divorce yesterday and turned all financial evidence over to federal prosecutors. Channel 12's cameras captured every devastating revelation while neighbors processed the scope of betrayal. This wasn't just about stolen packages. This was about fundamental violation of community trust by someone elected to protect their interests. Mrs. Patterson stood up slowly, commanding attention through sheer moral authority. I move that we elect interim leadership tonight and begin healing our neighborhood, she declared. I nominate Marcus Felix as temporary HOA president until proper elections can be conducted. The motion passed by unanimous voice vote, 47 residents shouting approval while news cameras recorded the grassroots democracy in action. Standing in front of that crowd, holding the evidence that had brought down a criminal conspiracy, I felt the weight of responsibility and opportunity. First order of business, I announced. Complete transparency. All financial records will be posted online. All board meetings will be live streamed. No secret votes, no hidden agendas, no purple pen tyranny. The laughter was cathartic. 6 months of fear and frustration releasing through shared humor about our former dictator's signature ink color. Second, we establish a neighborhood security fund using recovered assets from Brenda's criminal activity. Ring doorbells for elderly residents, community watch programs, and support for anyone financially impacted by theft. More applause, this time sustained and emotional, as residents realized their nightmare was transforming into positive change. Finally, I said, holding up evidence package number 127 one last time, we make sure this never happens again. No community leader operates without oversight. No resident suffers in silence. No criminal gets away with terrorizing their neighbors. Sarah Martinez positioned herself for the perfect closing shot. Dozens of residents applauding while federal evidence bags and handcuffs told the story of justice finally served. This is Sarah Martinez reporting live from Saguaro Springs, where a months-long federal investigation has resulted in the arrest of an HOA president for organized mail theft and embezzlement. Residents here tonight witnessed the dramatic conclusion of what prosecutors are calling one of the most brazen community corruption cases in Arizona history. As the news crew packed up their equipment and residents slowly filed out, discussing plans for positive community changes, I realized something important had happened beyond criminal justice. We'd reclaimed our neighborhood through collective action, federal law enforcement, and one perfectly placed bait package that proved crime doesn't pay, especially when your neighbors refuse to stay silent. Brenda Kelsworth had taught us an invaluable lesson: never underestimate a community united against corruption. 6 months later, Saguaro Springs looks completely different. The federal courthouse sentencing hearing drew a packed gallery of neighbors who'd suffered under Brenda's reign of terror. Watching her receive 18 months in federal prison plus 3 years probation felt like the final chapter of a nightmare we'd all shared. Judge Rebecca Morrison didn't mince words during sentencing. Mrs. Kelsworth, you violated the fundamental trust that binds communities together. You stole from neighbors who elected you to protect their interests. The systematic nature of your crimes, combined with attempts to intimidate victims, demonstrates complete disregard for both law and basic human decency. Full restitution was ordered, $127,000 covering all victims plus legal fees, with civil judgments adding another $45,000 in punitive damages. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was seeing our community transform from fear-based isolation into genuine neighborhood cooperation. Mrs. Patterson embraced her role as interim HOA president with the enthusiasm of someone finally free to implement positive changes. Monthly financial reports get posted online. Board meetings are live streamed with full public participation. Every major decision requires homeowner vote with 30-day advance notice. The Saguaro Springs Security Fund, funded entirely by recovered assets from Brenda's criminal activity, has revolutionized our neighborhood safety. Ring doorbells for all elderly residents, motion sensor lighting throughout common areas, and a WhatsApp group connecting everyone for real-time security updates. Property values recovered within 4 months as word spread about our corruption-free community management. Real estate agents actually use our transparent governance as a selling point for prospective buyers. Jennifer's family became close friends after bonding through shared trauma and recovery. Her kids play in our backyard while we plan community events that bring neighbors together instead of driving them apart. The annual Saguaro Springs Security Festival celebrates our victory over corruption with practical education about neighborhood safety. Local police provide crime prevention workshops, postal inspectors explain federal mail theft laws, and my hot sauce booth raises money for community improvements. My business, Desert Fire Sauces, exploded after the national news coverage. Orders poured in from people who loved the story of small business owner fighting back against neighborhood tyranny. I hired 2 part-time employees and launched a signature blend called Karma Burn that donates proceeds to HOA reform organizations nationwide. But the most satisfying development was Richard Kelsworth's transformation. Brenda's ex-husband became a gambling addiction counselor, using his experience with enabling destructive behavior to help other families recognize warning signs. He voluntarily paid additional restitution despite divorce protection, sending annual apology letters that demonstrate genuine remorse. The media coverage sparked broader conversations about HOA accountability across Phoenix suburbs. 3 other corrupt board presidents were investigated following our case, with 2 additional federal prosecutions resulting from residents inspired to document and report systematic abuse. I started speaking at property management conferences about preventing community corruption, sharing practical strategies for recognizing and stopping authoritarian overreach before it destroys neighborhood trust. Detective Felix became a personal friend, occasionally joining our community barbecues to discuss evolving mail theft patterns and federal protection strategies. She's used our case as training material for postal inspectors nationwide. The empty lot where Brenda's foreclosed house once stood became a community garden where neighbors grow vegetables and build relationships that prevent future corruption through genuine social connections. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. Our residents learned that collective action defeats individual tyranny every time. No community leader operates without accountability when neighbors support each other against abuse. Standing in my backyard during last week's neighborhood potluck, watching kids play while adults discuss community improvements with genuine enthusiasm, I realized something profound had occurred. We'd transformed from isolated homeowners tolerating authoritarian abuse into an actual community committed to mutual protection and shared prosperity. Brenda Kelsworth's criminal conspiracy had inadvertently created the strongest, most unified neighborhood in our entire subdivision. Sometimes the best revenge is simply building something better than what your enemies tried to destroy. Now it's your turn. Share your own HOA nightmare story in the comments below. The worst one gets featured in next week's video about fighting back against community corruption. And if you enjoyed watching karma catch up to a package-stealing tyrant, smash that subscribe button and hit notifications so you never miss another story where justice wins and bullies lose. Because every neighborhood deserves leaders who protect residents instead of preying on them. Thanks for watching, and remember, document everything, support your neighbors, and never let community tyrants operate without accountability. Justice is always worth fighting for.